Hi, folks. Tom and I are going to be doing some videos now, and we each have topics that we kind of are interested in, maybe germane to the news of the day. Uh, but one of them is the United States has always been known as a nation of laws. Um, and I've come to the conclusion that laws really um, uh, can seem to us to be treated differently to different people at different times and so on and so forth. Consistency of compliance with these laws. And Tom just related a story to me. Why don't you go ahead, Tom, about a situation uh, where it didn't make sense to you, how it was being enforced or interpreted, and so
Right,
forth.
right.
So, what was that story?
Well, just reading recently this week where there was a court hearing where it was upheld that it is not a crime to avoid the police. And it comes to examples where a black guy that raised to be very cautious about the police because of all the things that we know have happened in the past.
Yeah,
And so they're taught from a young age to really avoid the police as much as you can. And so
and I think that's what adds to their fear of police.
right.
Whereas, at least me, a white guy raised middle class in the suburbs, my parents never had that talk with me. But go ahead.
That's the talk. That's
That's
what they
the
talk
talk.
about. They say
Yes.
that's the talk.
Yes.
And they get that talk at a young age, And so, yeah, it never occurred to me either. And I never looked at it that way, being white middle class, as you
Sure.
say.
Sure.
Even in the city, it didn't matter. I mean, raised in the city, mostly among whites, but just never occurred to me either. So that was just decided, and it's kind of important as laws go. That you can't just assume somebody's guilty or elsewise just because they're avoiding the police.
Ah, okay. Um, will tell the story someday of being in the daycare business back in the late 80s, 70s, in the mid 80s, when we had one of those uh, child abuse um, uh, instances started and spread through our community.
Mm.
And I couldn't believe it. We all knew my wife and I owned the place and ran the place. And we knew no way. But the newspapers got a hold of it, and some unnamed personal injury type attorneys got a hold of it, and it was a mess. Just the publicity of it
Yeah.
almost ruined us. Well, someday I'll tell the whole story because it was a real nightmare and it almost put us out of business. But there was an instance where we lived in a suburb and had a district attorney who was a real no nonsense guy. And in fact, he was written up in the Wall Street Journal because prosecutors are supposed to seek justice, not necessarily to prosecute and find guilt. But yet we have this feeling in our culture here that, where there's smoke, there's fire and all that stuff. But anyway, that's a story for another time. So I know we'll talk more about that. The I think we need to realize Tom, what you mentioned, that there is a black culture and there is a white culture in this country. And given experiences of white people and black people, they view police and compliance, etc., very differently.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think that was the point you were trying to make. Let's look at another topic today, since we do have time. This $15 so-called minimum wage that seems to have taken hold in this country.
Okay.
And when did that start? And how did that start? And it seems to me it's kind of an unofficial thing, but people looking for jobs, that's what they're thinking now. You got any thoughts on that? How that came about?
Well, I think that traditionally minimum wage was something that teenagers were expected to get in after-school jobs, a McDonald's worker or something like that.
Yes.
And I'm just thinking right now about it, like
Sure.
maybe with the economy the way it is today, and the lack of jobs over the years. I mean, secretary jobs are gone. There are lots of jobs that are gone.
Don't
Is
even
it-
exist anymore.
They don't exist.
Yeah.
The internet put them out, and so I think there are fewer jobs around, and so the jobs that are there are minimum wage jobs, and
Yes.
yet people are trying to make a living on them, and maybe that's what's going on, and that just occurs to me. It also has to do with a wave of socialism that's here, where everybody's entitled to some wage that can support
Well,
them.
like you said, yeah, a living wage.
A living
And a
wage,
minimum
that-
wage was
that-
never meant to
It
be
was
a
never
living
meant
wage.
to be. There you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the point. And yet, more and more, it is becoming that.
Yeah, yeah. I think the pandemic, of course, scrambled everything.
Yeah, it did. Now, one example of that is turnpike toll takers. The toll takers are gone. Now, that plan was in existence with, I believe, AT&T was running that, where they had the
Oh, really?
the whole Easy Pass thing,
Ah,
And-
okay.
and a plan to eventually get rid of toll takers.
Yeah,
But the pandemic forced it, and they just moved everything up. And they said, well, if you don't have Easy Pass, we're going to take a picture of your license and send you a bill. But we're not going to have any toll takers anymore. So there's a job that's gone.
yes,
And that was a starter job in Pennsylvania.
yes.
I don't know if you're familiar with this. In Pennsylvania, you can pretty much move around within the state government from one job to another. So that was a
Yes.
starter job. A toll taker, next job might be in the liquor control board, or
Yes.
as,
So you
as a-
get moved around.
you
If
get
you're
moved around.
employed in the public sector,
sure.
you'll never be out of a job.
Deputy sheriff.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
you moved from that first initial job. See, so there you go. Now that one's gone. So
Yes.
there you go again.
Yeah,
Now the counter to this whole thing, and California, I think they
Right.
even raised it higher, didn't they? It's above $15.
It seems to me the marketplace bidded it up.
Yeah.
And everybody's thinking, well, this should at least be $15. And so then the next guy thought, oh, well, if I'm going to compete for good labor, I better be 16, 17.
Yeah, it bids the whole
And
thing up,
inflation
you're right.
starts.
But
Yeah,
right, but on the other hand, then what does the McDonald's do? There are no more cashiers.
yes.
Chick-fil-A is talking about building stores that are drive-through only,
Yes.
no cashiers. You
Yeah.
order on your phone, and you go and pick it up at a window, and you build it to your credit card on the phone app.
I feel bad for the old folks
Yeah.
who, myself included, I see, I look at some website and they almost force me to order ahead of time
Yeah.
on their
yeah.
app and have their app crowding out my home screen.
McDonald's, when you drive up to McDonald's now, it says, "Will you be using the app?"
Yes.
It's like, what are you talking about?
Can I just want a
And
cheeseburger.
right. Will you be using the app? The first thing they
Yeah, yeah. And of course, if you're using their app, you've applied for it or gone to the App Store and gotten it at some point, or
Yeah.
they sent it to you and made it easy for you
right.
to have.
Yeah.
And no more people. No
Right.
more people.
Now here's another one. Good example. I went through that line the other day. I wanted an ice cream cone. Now
Oh, okay.
McDonald's is famous for never having the ice cream machine working.
That's right. The old the old McFlurry machine
yeah,
is
it's
down.
down.
Yeah.
So McDonald's ice cream. We used to go. My wife and I used to go. It was just a little treat. We're out. And
Yeah.
like, let's stop and get cones. So we would each get an ice cream. $1. They were $1.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I went through there, and first of all, will you be using the app?
For an
I want an
ice cream
cone.
cone. Oh my gosh.
So no, thank you. Well, can I place your
Okay.
order? I just want an ice cream cone.
Yes.
Then you hope they tell you it's working. Like, now, how do you do all that on the app? I'm not sure how that works on the app.
Yeah.
But then he comes up and he says, "Okay, drive around. That'll be $2.76.
Yes.
$2.76."
Yeah.
And I got there. I said, it used to be $1. And he just chuckled. Yeah.
How long ago? Now today is
Pre-COVID, I
is
would
what?
say.
We're almost at Memorial Day 2024.
Right.
When do you think it was $1 that you first noticed? Let's talk about the
was
inflation
pre-
that's been
Yeah.
rampant.
I'll just throw 2018 out there. 2018, it was $1.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
pre-COVID, certainly.
I noticed, and my motto is nobody works for free, and all costs must be passed along. I'm a longtime capitalist.
Sure. Yeah.
I remember because I was kind of regular at Chick-fil-A. I love it like most of this country does, and it's still a wonderful sandwich. I would go there, I'm going to say 5 years ago, and I would order the Chick-fil-A sandwich and a lemonade, small one. And maybe the total was $4.85 or $4.90 or something, and a little bit of tax, around $5 for those two items. I think today you go and I noticed Chick-fil-A was smart. They had raised the price little tiny bits from when I started about 5 years ago to be where they're at today, which for that lemonade and sandwich today is probably 7 something.
I would think.
Yes. Still delicious, still quality. And you know what? They didn't raise it suddenly, like a lot of restaurants and meal places had to. And they get beat up over it.
Mm-hmm.
Chick-fil-A was smart. Maybe they could see the future through the pandemic and through the Bidenomics. But the restaurants that my wife and I go to now, we used to be able to each get an entree, and maybe the total was in the mid 20. This is a sit-down restaurant. I'm not a Chick-fil-A
Right.
anymore, a local sit-down or one of the chain restaurants. and the two of us, again, we no alcohol or anything, would be maybe close to upper 20s dollars. Today, it's the two of us more like upper $40. I don't know. Have you guys eat out?
Yeah, we eat
What
out
do you
quite
think
often.
they're trying to get per entree now?
Yeah, well, 15 is the bottom
That
anymore.
seems to
Yeah,
be. Yeah.
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 And I can remember we had a diner. We still go to the same diner. To your point there, where
Yeah.
I can remember it was inexpensive. 20. We would get out of there for $20,
Okay.
and today it's $30.
Yes.
And we haven't changed what we eat, but that's the way it goes. Yeah.
So that percent of inflation from 20 to 30,
That's
is
50%.
50%, I think it is.
Yeah.
Seems to be.
And
Yeah.
it is really that high. you
Yeah.
know?
The
But these
Yeah.
companies are, they're responding by getting rid of employees. Like maybe I said that, but
yes.
it's like they want you to use the app. I know I went into McDonald's and they have this board. You order by touching the board all over the place,
Oh, I haven't been in one
Oh.
lately.
and
Yeah.
and
You
I
really
mean,
have to stand back and kind of study it now.
You do.
Don't you?
and then they keep
Yeah.
trying to upsell you. You sure you want the small coffee? And it's like, oh, can I just taste this order?
Yeah.
And then because I'm a relatively old guy,
Yes. I'm
woman
right
comes
with
out,
you.
she's going to help me with this
Yeah.
board.
Well,
Yeah.
that's good.
And I turned to her and I said, I know how it works. I just don't want to use it.
Yeah, good. I love it. That sounds
And,
like you,
Yeah.
with a smile on your face.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but there is no cashier. They
That's
would
right.
even rather, they
Yeah.
don't want to handle the cash.
Yeah.
They would rather you put the
Yeah.
amount of money in this board
And
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 go.
and that brings up another topic about cash. There's a concerted effort, the New World Order or
Yeah.
globalization
Right,
or
right.
something, to do away with cash.
And
Yeah.
it's funny too because I guess it depends on your generation and your age group.
Yeah.
There's no way I would want that, and yet my kids don't have a dollar bill on them at any time.
Yes.
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 And it's like they're buying into this whole thing,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
they'll know every transaction you made, and they'll shut down. I don't
That's
know.
right. Yeah. Go ahead.
China is already doing. You have a social measure like a credit score. As far as they're monitoring as far as how you're going along with what they want you to do.
They're
And-
classifying their population
Yeah,
by probably lots of things,
yeah, and whatever they want it to
education,
be, yeah.
income, and so forth.
And so they could shut down your
Yeah.
digital cash in a minute.
Yes.
You see,
Yes.
and yet the young people are just going along with a whole lot of things that I would never agree to go along with.
Me too. And as a student of Ayn Rand and George Orwell and who were the other people that 1984 and that you and I read about and saw 40, 50 years ago, it's coming to be where all information on everybody is compiled
Yeah.
and comes back to put you in a box and regulate you. It's scary to me. Anyway, I had one other topic that I thought was kind of interesting. That is we recently saw in the news about Scotty Scheffler, and it sounds like I followed it maybe a little more than you did. Not that I follow golf, but I followed how he was treated in this incident, how the police responded in this incident, how the media responded in this incident, because those can all be viewed very, very differently. And as someone who has experienced it
And
in
maybe
real
that's why-
life,
That's right. Maybe
in
why you
real
were
life,
so interested in
I
it.
mean,
Yeah.
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 For instance, the video of Scotty Scheffler came out today, and I watched it on TV, and it looked as though Scotty was in a hurry. Scotty was, I guess, identified in his car as
Calendar alert.
a participant, a golfer, and they had to get to their tee times or practice times or something. And I know he was in a hurry, and I know exactly how he felt. He came upon some roadblocks and things that an unusual traffic direction, because there had been a death there earlier in the day of a worker who was volunteering to do some traffic directions. So I'm sure everybody was on edge, including Scotty, and he didn't really want to stop. And ordinarily, under normal circumstances, he probably would have been waved through because, oh, he's one of the golfers and so forth, but he wasn't. So he reacted a little differently, maybe. He was upset. And the police were on edge because there had been a death very near there. And they were maybe not acting like they normally would. So everybody was off kilter. And Scotty hurried through, maybe when he shouldn't have. But yet it was caught on camera. The media was there on top of it. The spotlight was on him. And that changes everything. So the authorities, of course, had to act like we're going to treat everybody the same. And they charged him with some things that seemed a little out of the ordinary for what happened, to show that we're the law enforcement. We're not treating him any differently than anybody else, and so forth. And the media is watching too. Is he going to be treated like anybody else would be for what happened? I hearken back to the George Floyd incident. And good grief, did that start a lot of reaction and anger and so forth. What if that hadn't have been recorded on camera? I think it surely would have changed our past history in an awful lot of areas. But anyway, it's a topic for another one of these wonderful YouTube productions.
Well, that goes back to the cameras and George Orwell, as you mentioned before,
Yeah.
1984. They had cameras on every corner and all this. It's like, well, the way it turned out, we
Yeah.
did it to ourselves.
Yes.
Everybody has a cell phone with a camera, and
Yes.
they're videotaping everything.
That's
you know?
right.
So it's like, yeah, it came true, but the government didn't do it.
A good point.
Yeah.
A good point. So, this is one of our first efforts at YouTube. We have some ideas for some guests and maybe some panels. But as I said when I started my audio podcast, and I think you may have noticed that in our background here. Tom and I do the audio podcast, and I tell people just go to Spotify, get the Spotify app or whatever. We're gonna continue to do those, one every couple of weeks or so, but we also want to do some video work, YouTube, and as I always said, I make this stuff up as I go along. Tom's the brains of the operation, so we're gonna mess around with it, and I will have some guests in studio here for a lot of neat topics coming up. And Tom and I'll do one every once in a while just ourselves. So, Tom, anything you want to say before we sign off?
No, it's good. Hope
Well,
it works for you. You know, we
yeah.
continue to do it and grow the.
We'll have fun.
Yeah. Right.
And it's a hobby for those of you who think I really need the viewers because the pressure's on me to have sponsors and make money. That's not the case. Think of me as Donald Trump, who he surely doesn't
lost half your audience.
who certainly doesn't need all the crap he's been through. And someday we'll talk about politics, but not today. So thanks for tuning in, and listen to my YouTube or my Spotify audio podcast, Doug's Interesting People. I think I'm up to close to 70 episodes now. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.